Little persons.
I do think that Bill Hamilton is capable of making that kind of terrifying.
When one family's 30-year secret is finally exposed, blood ties are questioned, loyalty is shattered, and Eva's unexpected return forces everyone to face an uncomfortable truth that the gates of Fairmont Crest were built not just to keep strangers out, but to keep dark secrets in. Tonight, as the Duprees and Richardsons face their new reality, one character makes a decision that changes everything forever. In the explosive finale of episode 47, Leslie Chambers shattered the foundations of Fairmont Crest's most powerful families. After distributing letters containing long-buried secrets to the Duprees and Richardsons, Leslie confronted them all at the Dupree mansion with her most devastating revelation. Sarah, Vernon's mistress from 30 years ago, never left town alive, and Eva was framed to protect the family's reputation. The room erupted in chaos when Leslie revealed that Ted Richardson is actually Vernon and Sarah's biological son, making him Nicole's stepbrother, not just her husband. The family fractured before our eyes. Nicole left with Kat, unable to stay under the same roof as Ted or her parents. Danny and Bill departed together, finding unexpected connection in their shared shock. Martin stayed with Vernon, already strategizing damage control. While Anita and Vernon sat in silent devastation, the weight of their 30-year deception finally crushing them. In the episode's final moments, Leslie returned to her apartment and received a phone call from Eva herself, who had just landed at Fairmont Airport. "Is it really time to come home?" Eva asked. Leslie's response was both triumphant and ominous. "Yes, Eva. It's time." As episode 48 begins, each character stands at a personal crossroads, their emotional states as fragile as they are volatile. Anita Dupree, portrayed by the remarkable Tamara Tooney, opens the episode seated alone in her pristine dressing room, a space that once represented her impeccable control over her world. Now it feels like a gilded prison. Anita's hands tremble slightly as she attempts to fasten her signature pearl necklace, a gesture she's performed thousands of times but now struggles with as the weight of her actions bears down on her. What Anita fears most isn't public humiliation or even legal consequences. It's the permanent loss of her daughter's respect. What she wants desperately is redemption, though she can't yet imagine how to achieve it. When we first see her, she's staring at her reflection, whispering, "Whoa, what have we done?" Before Vernon's reflection appears behind her, equally haunted. Vernon Dupree, played by the distinguished Clifton Davis, begins episode 48 in his study, surrounded by photographs chronicling his illustrious political career. He methodically removes each frame from the wall, creating a stack on his desk as if physically dismantling his legacy. Vernon fears the collapse of everything he's built, not just his family relationships, but his entire public persona as a moral leader in the community. What he wants is to protect his grandson Martin's political future from the fallout of his own mistakes. The episode opens for him as he pauses on a particular photograph, one showing him with a much younger Ted at a campaign event, the significance of their biological connection now casting this innocent moment in a sinister light. Nicole Dupree Richardson, portrayed by Daphne Duplay, starts the episode in a suite at the Fairmont Hotel, where she spent a sleepless night. The psychiatrist who has built her career on helping others navigate emotional crises now finds herself unable to process her own trauma. Nicole fears that her entire life has been built on lies, her marriage, her family identity, even her understanding of herself. What she wants is clarity and distance from the chaos to rebuild some semblance of truth for herself and her children. The episode opens for her as she sits on the edge of the bed, staring at her wedding ring, torn between removing it and keeping it on for appearance's sake, as her daughter Kat emerges from the bathroom asking gently, "Mom, what do we do now?" Ted Richardson, played by Keith D. Robinson, begins the episode alone in the home he shared with Nicole, surrounded by evidence of their life together that now feels like artifacts from someone else's existence. The successful plastic surgeon who has built his career on perfecting facades now faces the collapse of his own carefully constructed identity. Ted fears complete isolation, the loss of his wife, his children, and his place in a family that he now knows is biologically his, but has been emotionally distant from in profound ways. What he wants is Nicole's forgiveness and understanding, though he knows it may be impossible. The episode opens with him holding their wedding photograph, his fingers tracing Nicole's face, when his phone rings with a call from Martin, his son, and now disturbingly, his nephew. Martin Richardson, portrayed by Brandon Claiborne, begins episode 48 in his congressional office at dawn, having worked through the night with his crisis management team. Unlike the rest of his family, Martin has already shifted into professional damage control mode, his political instincts overriding his personal shock. Martin fears the destruction of his rising political career and the Dupree-Richardson dynasty he was positioned to inherit. What he wants is containment and control of the narrative before it destroys everything he's worked for. The episode opens with him delivering instructions to his team. I need to know who Leslie has contacted beyond the family. Every journalist, every friend, every casual acquaintance. Kat Richardson, played by Colby Muhammad, starts the episode sitting in the hotel suite's window seat, watching the sunrise over Fairmont Crest. Unlike her brother, Kat's immediate concern is emotional, not practical. She fears the disintegration of her family identity and the realization that the grandparents she's admired have been capable of such deception. What Kat wants is truth, raw and complete, even if it's painful. The episode opens for her as she turns to her mother and says with surprising strength, "We need to talk to Eva. Whatever happened, she deserves to be heard." Danny Dupree, portrayed by Carla Mosley, begins episode 48 at Bill's apartment, pacing nervously as dawn breaks. The former model has spent her life being underestimated and dismissed as the pretty one, but Leslie's revelations have given her unexpected purpose. Danny fears being sidelined again as the family manages this crisis, yet she also fears the responsibility of holding such devastating information. What she wants is to be taken seriously and to find her own voice amid the family chaos. The episode opens with her telling Bill, "I think Eva might be reaching out to me. I got a text from an unknown number asking to meet." Bill Hamilton, played by Timon Kyle Durrett, starts the episode watching Danny with a mixture of concern and newfound respect. Their shared experience of Leslie's revelations has created an unexpected intimacy between the ex-spouses. Bill fears being pulled back into Dupree family drama, yet he's also afraid of leaving Danny to navigate it alone. What he wants is to protect her while respecting her independence. The episode opens for him as he offers measured advice. "Before you meet anyone, we need to understand exactly what Leslie's accusations mean legally. This isn't just family drama anymore, Danny. This could be obstruction of justice." Leslie Chambers begins episode 48 in her modest apartment, calmly packing an overnight bag as if preparing for a long-planned journey. After years of carrying the burden of Sarah's fate, Leslie feels a complex mixture of relief and anticipation. She no longer fears retribution from the Duprees or Richardsons. That fear has been replaced by a sense of purpose. What Leslie wants now is justice for Sarah and vindication for Eva. The episode opens with her answering a knock at her door to reveal Eva herself, standing there after years of exile, their emotional reunion conveying volumes about their shared history without a word being spoken. Eva Blackwell, finally appearing in physical form after being a name referenced throughout the series, begins episode 48 stepping into Leslie's apartment with the cautious demeanor of someone returning to a place of both familiarity and trauma. Portrayed by the captivating Regina King, in a special guest starring role, Eva carries herself with dignity despite the weight of her past. Eva fears that her return to Fairmont Crest will reopen wounds that never properly healed, yet she's driven by a deeper need for justice. What Eva wants is acknowledgement of the truth and the restoration of her reputation. The episode opens for her with a simple, powerful statement to Leslie. I didn't think I'd ever set foot in this town again, but some things you just can't run from forever. As episode 48 truly begins, these characters, each nursing their own fears and desires, move like planets in new orbits, their familiar patterns disrupted by the gravitational force of truth. The once impenetrable gates of Fairmont Crest can no longer protect them from the consequences of the past. The episode begins with a striking aerial shot of Fairmont Crest at dawn, the community's elegant homes and manicured lawns bathed in golden light. But unlike previous establishing shots that emphasize the community's exclusive perfection, this one slowly pulls back to reveal the gates themselves, the physical barrier between Fairmont Crest and the outside world, now serving as a powerful visual metaphor for the psychological barriers about to be breached. In the first scene, Leslie and Eva sit in Leslie's modest living room, tension evident in their body language despite their long friendship. I've been planning this for years, Leslie explains, spreading newspaper clippings and documents on the coffee table between them. Every detail of how Sarah died, how they covered it up, how they framed you. Eva studies the material with a pained expression. Leslie, I've spent 15 years trying to forget this place. Are you sure bringing all this back is worth it? Leslie's response is unwavering. Sarah was your sister, Eva. If anyone deserves justice, it's you. This revelation, that Eva and Sarah were sisters, adds new dimension to Eva's determination to return and face the Duprees. Meanwhile, at the Fairmont Hotel, Nicole attempts to maintain composure as she calls her office to cancel the day's appointments. Her professional demeanor cracks when her receptionist asks if everything is all right. Family emergency, Nicole manages before ending the call. Kat watches her mother with concern before suggesting again that they should talk to Eva. How? Nicole asks bitterly. We don't even know where she is. Their conversation is interrupted by a text on Kat's phone from Danny sharing that she's received a message from someone claiming to be Eva. Nicole's expression shifts from disbelief to determination. Tell Danny to arrange a meeting, but not at the house, somewhere neutral. Across town, Martin arrives at his grandfather Vernon's study, finding him surrounded by the removed photographs. Grandpa, we need to get ahead of this, Martin insists, his political instincts in full force. Vernon looks up, his usual commanding presence diminished. You don't understand what's at stake, Martin. Martin's response reveals his pragmatic approach. I understand that Leslie has made serious accusations. True or not, they need to be managed. Vernon studies his grandson with new awareness, seeing perhaps too much of himself in Martin's calculated response. Sometimes, Vernon says quietly, there are things more important than managing perceptions. This rare moment of genuine reflection from Vernon surprises Martin, creating a subtle shift in their dynamic. In one of the episode's most powerful scenes, Ted arrives unannounced at the Fairmont Hotel, attempting to see Nicole. When she refuses to come down, he encounters Kat in the lobby instead. Their conversation is painfully awkward as both struggle with their new understanding of their relationship. I'm still your father, Ted insists desperately. Kat's response is measured but devastating. Are you? Because right now, I don't know who anyone in this family really is. As she turns to leave, Ted calls after her. I never knew about Sarah until after your mother and I were married. You have to believe that. Kat pauses, then delivers the line that cuts deepest. The problem is, Dad, I don't have to believe anything anymore. The scene shifts to Danny and Bill at a quiet corner table in the Fairmont Crest Country Club, a deliberately public choice that Bill questioned but Danny insisted on. If we meet in secret, it looks like we have something to hide, she explained with unexpected strategic thinking. Their wait for Eva is tense, with Bill repeatedly scanning the room for signs of trouble. When Eva finally enters, heads turn throughout the club, her return to Fairmont Crest creating an immediate stir. The camera lingers on Eva's confident stride as she approaches their table, her presence commanding respect despite her status as the community's most notorious exile. Daniela Dupree, Eva says, using Danny's full name with pointed familiarity. Last time I saw you, you were still in college. Danny's response shows her growth in this crisis. A lot has changed, but apparently not enough. Back at the Dupree mansion, Anita finds herself alone in the grand living room where Leslie delivered her revelations the previous day. A lifetime of maintaining appearances makes her automatically straighten cushions and rearrange flowers despite her inner turmoil. The doorbell's chime startles her. It's Tracy, her former rival from the Articulettes, arriving for their previously scheduled meeting about the group reunion. The timing creates a surreal moment as Anita instinctively shifts into her polished social persona while her world crumbles around her. Tracy, I'm afraid something's come up, Anita begins. But Tracy interrupts. I've already heard, Anita. News travels fast. The look that passes between these two women, once competitors, now facing each other at Anita's most vulnerable moment, speaks volumes about female relationships and the performance of perfection that has defined Anita's life. In an unexpected development, Martin visits Leslie's apartment, finding Eva there instead. Their confrontation is charged with history that predates Martin's awareness. You must be Vernon's grandson, Eva observes, studying his face for resemblance. You have his ambition. I see it in your eyes. Martin attempts to maintain control of the encounter, suggesting that a resolution beneficial to all parties might be possible. Ava's laugh is genuine but sad. You really are his grandson, always looking for the deal, the compromise, the way to make a problem disappear. Martin's facade cracks slightly. You don't understand what's at stake. Eva's response is pointed. I understand exactly what's at stake. I lost 15 years of my life to protect your family's reputation. What have you lost, Congressman Richardson? One of the episode's most tension-filled scenes occurs when Nicole and Kat meet Danny and Eva at a small cafe outside Fairmont Crest's gates, neutral territory both geographically and symbolically. The four women sit in uncomfortable silence until Eva finally speaks. Your father's relationship with my sister began when he was still in the Senate. Sarah was an aide in his office. Nicole, struggling to maintain her professional demeanor, asks the question that's been haunting her. And you knew? All this time you knew Ted was their child? Eva's answer is complex. I suspected. Sarah told me she was pregnant before she disappeared. When I saw Ted years later at your engagement party, she pauses, the memory clearly painful. He has her eyes. Exactly her eyes. This confirmation lands heavily on Nicole and Kat, the genetic connection between Ted and Sarah now impossible to deny or ignore. Meanwhile, Ted seeks out Bill at his law office, their new connection as members of the extended Dupree-Richardson family creating an awkward dynamic. I need to know my legal position, Ted explains, his usual confidence absent. Bill's response is measured. That depends on what you knew and when. Obstruction of justice doesn't expire, Ted. Their conversation is interrupted when Bill receives texts from both Danny and Martin simultaneously. Eva has begun sharing her story publicly, starting with a social media post that's already being picked up by local news outlets. The episode's momentum builds as we see Eva, now seated at a small desk in Leslie's apartment, recording a video statement. My name is Eva Blackwell, and 15 years ago, I was framed for financial fraud to silence me about the disappearance of my sister, Sarah Blackwell. Her calm delivery makes the accusations all the more damning. Today, I'm returning to Fairmont Crest to reclaim my story and demand justice for Sarah. As she speaks, we see multiple characters watching her video on their phones, Vernon and Anita in their separate spaces in the mansion, Martin in his office with his crisis team, Nicole and Kat in their hotel room, Danny and Bill returning to his apartment, Ted alone in his and Nicole's empty home. In a pivotal scene, Vernon finally breaks his silence, calling a family meeting at the mansion. As family members arrive separately, the tension is palpable. Martin arrives first, already in damage control mode. Danny comes reluctantly, refusing to meet her parents' eyes. Nicole arrives last with Kat, her stance protective of her daughter. Notably absent is Ted, whose invitation was rescinded by Nicole's explicit request. When everyone is seated in the formal living room, Vernon stands before them like a senator addressing a committee. What Leslie told you yesterday was not entirely accurate. He begins carefully. Sarah's death was an accident, a terrible accident that occurred here, in this house. His admission stuns the room. She fell during an argument with Anita. I was not present when it happened. This revelation shifts focus to Anita, whose composed facade finally crumbles as she rises to speak. Anita's confession forms the emotional core of the episode. I discovered Vernon's affair with Sarah when she came to tell me she was pregnant, she explains, her voice steady despite her evident pain. She came to this house, our home, to inform me that my husband had fathered her child. The camera stays tight on Anita's face as she relives the moment. We argued. It became heated. She threatened to go public to ruin everything we'd built. Anita pauses, the weight of the memory visible in her expression. When she turned to leave, I grabbed her arm. She pulled away and fell, hit her head on the marble fireplace hearth. The camera pans to the fireplace, its beautiful marble edge now revealed as a murder weapon. She died instantly. I panicked and called Vernon. Nicole interrupts, her psychiatrist's analytical mind cutting through emotion. So you covered up her death, made it look like she'd left town, and then framed her sister when she got too close to the truth. The clinical precision of Nicole's summary lands like physical blows on her parents. As the family confrontation unfolds, we cut to Eva and Leslie approaching the gates of Fairmont Crest in Leslie's car, symbolically returning to the community that exiled them. Are you sure about this? Leslie asks, hesitating before entering the code that will open the gates. Eva's expression is resolute. Sarah died behind those gates. The least I can do is walk through them one more time to tell her story. The gates open slowly, their movement creating an ominous creaking that serves as soundtrack to Eva's return. Back at the mansion, the family discussion has devolved into accusations and recriminations. Danny, finding her voice perhaps for the first time, cuts through the chaos. Did you ever think about what you did to Ted? He grew up without knowing his real parents because of your lies. This perspective, focusing on Ted as a victim rather than accomplice, shifts the emotional temperature of the room. Martin, ever the politician, attempts to redirect. What matters now is how we handle this as a family. His comment prompts a bitter laugh from Nicole. As a family? Which family, Martin? The one we thought we were or the one we actually are? This question about the nature of family itself resonates as one of the episode's central themes. The episode's most shocking moment comes when Eva and Leslie arrive unexpectedly at the Dupree mansion, their entrance creating immediate silence among the feuding family members. Eva stands in the doorway, her presence commanding the room despite 15 years of exile. Vernon, Anita, she acknowledges them with remarkable composure. I believe you know why I'm here. Vernon attempts to take control. Eva, I understand your anger, but there are legal complexities. Eva cuts him off. I'm not here for explanations or excuses. I'm here for justice, for Sarah, and for myself. Her gaze sweeps the room, taking in the next generation. Your children and grandchildren deserve to know exactly what kind of people raised them. What follows is Eva's account of her own story. How she returned to Fairmont Crest after Sarah supposedly left town, suspicious of her sister's sudden departure. How she began asking questions that made the Duprees uncomfortable. How financial improprieties appeared in accounts she managed at the Fairmont Crest Community Foundation. Improprieties that were carefully engineered to frame her. I lost my reputation, my career, and 15 years of my life, Eva concludes, all to protect your perfect family image. Her testimony is delivered with dignity rather than rage, making it all the more powerful. The episode reaches its emotional climax when Kat, who has been observing silently, suddenly stands and crosses the room to Eva. I want to know about my father, about Ted. she says simply. Was he, is he Sarah's son? Eva's expression softens as she looks at Kat. Yes, Sarah told me she was pregnant before she disappeared. When I saw Ted years later, I knew immediately. He has Sarah's eyes. This confirmation, coming not from Leslie's accusations but from Sarah's own sister, lands with finality. Kat's next question surprises everyone. Do you have pictures of her? Of Sarah. I'd like to see my grandmother. The request creates a pivotal moment where the human cost of the Dupree's deception becomes painfully clear. Kat has been denied not just truth, but connection to her own biological grandmother. Ava reaches into her purse and pulls out a worn photograph, handing it to Kat. As Kat studies the image, the camera focuses on her face as she recognizes features she's seen in her father and perhaps in herself. She was beautiful, Kat says simply, tears forming. And now she's going to be heard, Eva promises, placing a gentle hand on Kat's shoulder, a gesture that symbolically connects the generations in a way the Dupree family's deception sought to prevent. The episode's final scenes show the immediate aftermath of Eva's confrontation. Vernon, realizing the extent of the damage to the family reputation, makes a call to his longtime lawyer. Anita sits alone in her dressing room, removing her signature pearls and placing them in their velvet box with finality. Nicole returns to the hotel with Kat, their shared trauma creating a new closeness. Martin convenes with his political advisors, already calculating the cost to his career. Danny and Bill share a moment of unexpected intimacy as they process the day's events. And in the episode's final scene, Eva and Leslie stand at Sarah's unmarked grave, a small, forgotten plot outside Fairmont Crest's boundaries. Tomorrow, Eva says quietly, we make it official. We file a police report. Leslie nods, placing flowers on the grave. After all these years, Sarah will finally come home. Episode 48. Aftermath and Revelations elevates beyond the gates from compelling family drama to profound social commentary through its exploration of several interconnected themes. The episode serves as a pivotal moment where the series' underlying messages crystallize with extraordinary emotional impact. The most prominent theme is the illusion of perfection and its costs. Fairmont Crest itself symbolizes this illusion, a gated community designed to create an idealized environment physically separated from the messiness of the outside world. The Duprees, as the community's black royalty, have invested everything in maintaining this perfection. Anita's confession reveals the terrible price of this facade. Everything we did was to protect what we'd built. Do you understand how hard we worked to get where we are? What it took for a black family to achieve this position? This dialogue illuminates the added pressure on successful black families to be beyond reproach. To be not just good, but perfect in a society that often scrutinizes them more harshly. The visual symbolism throughout the episode reinforces this theme. Notice how the Dupree mansion, previously filmed in warm golden tones suggesting wealth and harmony, is now shot with harsh shadows and cold blue lighting. The grand staircase, once a symbol of the family's rise to prominence, now visually divides the characters as they take different moral positions. Even the family portraits lining the walls take on new meaning, their perfect smiles now seeming more like masks than genuine expressions of familial happiness. Another significant theme is the corruption of power and ambition. Vernon's background as a senator is not incidental to the plot, but central to it. His instinct to contain the situation rather than address it honestly reveals how political thinking can corrupt personal ethics. Martin's immediate focus on damage control rather than moral reckoning shows this corruption passing to the next generation. The parallel between Vernon's past cover-up and Martin's present-day instinct to manage the narrative creates a powerful commentary on how ambition can warp integrity across generations. The episode also explores the theme of buried truths and their inevitable resurrection. Eva and Leslie serve as the embodiment of conscience, voices that cannot remain silent despite decades of pressure. Eva's line, "Some things you just can't run from forever," resonates beyond the specific plot to touch on broader social themes about how historical injustices eventually demand recognition. The unmarked grave where Eva and Leslie stand in the final scene becomes a powerful symbol of how marginalized stories may be temporarily buried but will ultimately resurface to be acknowledged. One of the most nuanced themes is the exploration of family as both biological reality and emotional choice. Ted's biological connection to Vernon creates a Shakespearean complexity in his relationship with Nicole and their children. When Kat asks to see a photograph of Sarah, saying, "I'd like to see my grandmother," she's making a profound statement about recognizing biological truth while simultaneously rejecting the lies that have defined her family. This moment challenges viewers to consider what truly constitutes family: shared DNA, shared history, or shared values. The symbolic significance of the gates themselves evolves throughout the episode. Initially representing exclusivity and protection, they increasingly function as barriers to truth and justice. When Eva enters the code to open the gates in her return to Fairmont Crest, the slow, creaking movement suggests not just a physical return, but the painful process of opening closed systems to accountability. By the episode's end, the gates no longer represent protection, but imprisonment. The Duprees trapped by the very structures they created to maintain their status. Two fascinating fan theories have emerged from this episode that merit consideration. The first suggests that Leslie's motivation goes beyond friendship with Eva or justice for Sarah. Some viewers have noted subtle hints that Leslie may be related to the Blackwell sisters, possibly a cousin or even a half-sister. Her line to Sarah's photograph in episode 47, "I'm doing this for you," carries an intimacy that some interpret as familial. If true, this would add another layer to the exploration of hidden family connections that runs throughout the series. The second theory concerns Ted's knowledge of his biological parentage. While the episode presents Ted as learning about Vernon being his father after marrying Nicole, some viewers point to earlier interactions between Ted and Vernon that suggest a longer awareness. Particularly, a scene in episode 12 where Ted hesitates before calling Vernon Senator instead of Dad in a public setting has fueled speculation that Ted may have known or suspected the truth much earlier than he admits. This theory, if confirmed, would significantly complicate Ted's character, suggesting that his relationship with Nicole may have had motivations beyond love. What makes Beyond the Gates truly exceptional is how it weaves these thematic elements into a narrative that never feels didactic. The moral complexities of each character, their understandable motivations alongside their inexcusable actions, create a rich tapestry that resists simple judgment. Even Anita and Vernon, whose cover-up set these tragic events in motion, are portrayed with humanity that acknowledges the unique pressures they faced as a prominent Black family in a predominantly white power structure. The episode asks us to consider not just who these characters are, but who they might have been without the distorting influence of secrets, ambition, and the exhausting performance of perfection. As Eva stands in the Dupree mansion confronting the family that exiled her, the question hanging in the air is not just about justice for the past, but about the possibility of authentic identity in the future. Can any of these characters truly know themselves after decades of living within carefully constructed illusions? As we reflect on the seismic events of episode 48, Aftermath and Revelations, it's clear that Beyond the Gates has crossed a threshold from which there can be no return. The foundations of the Dupree-Richardson dynasty have been irrevocably shaken, with truth finally penetrating the carefully maintained facades of Fairmont Crest's most prominent family. The episode's most powerful achievement is how it transforms our understanding of each character while remaining true to the personalities established throughout the season. Anita's confession reveals not just her role in Sarah's death, but the terrible burden she's carried for 30 years. Her perfect exterior, now understood as a prison of her own making. Vernon's political instincts, once admired as strategic brilliance, are revealed as moral compromise that corrupted his family relationships. Nicole's professional expertise in helping others navigate emotional crises becomes painfully ironic as she struggles to process her own trauma. Ted's identity crisis reaches existential proportions as he grapples with his biological parentage and its implications for his marriage and children. The younger generation's responses prove equally revealing. Martin's immediate pivot to damage control shows how deeply he's internalized his grandfather's values, prioritizing reputation over truth. Kat's simple request to see a photograph of her biological grandmother demonstrates an emotional maturity that surpasses many of the adults around her. Danny's emergence from the shadow of her more accomplished sister suggests a strength that's been underestimated by her family and perhaps by herself. What makes this episode a landmark in the series is how it balances explosive revelations with intimate emotional moments. The grand confrontation at the Dupree mansion delivers the dramatic catharsis viewers have been anticipating, but it's in quieter scenes. Eva and Leslie at Sarah's unmarked grave, Kat studying Sarah's photograph, Anita removing her pearls, that the human cost of these events becomes most profound. As we look ahead to episode 49, several critical questions remain. Eva's intention to file an official police report raises the specter of legal consequences for Anita and Vernon. Will their status and connections protect them, or will justice finally be served? Nicole and Ted's marriage hangs in the balance. Can their relationship survive not just the revelation of Ted's parentage, but the decades of deception surrounding it? Martin's political career faces its first serious crisis. Will he follow his grandfather's pattern of containment and compromise, or forge a new path of transparency? Most intriguingly, Eva's return to Fairmont Crest suggests a potential power shift within the community. As the truth about her framing spreads, will she reclaim her position and reputation? The symbolic significance of her walking through the gates that once excluded her cannot be overstated. It represents not just personal vindication, but the possibility of transforming Fairmont Crest itself from a bastion of exclusivity to a community that acknowledges its flaws and histories. The episode's final scene at Sarah's unmarked grave establishes the next phase of this saga, the official investigation into her death and the cover-up that followed. This move from private family drama to public legal proceeding will test each character in new ways, forcing them to choose between loyalty to family and commitment to truth. For 3 decades, the gates of Fairmont Crest have contained secrets as much as they've excluded outsiders. Now, as those gates stand symbolically open, Beyond the Gates asks us to consider what happens when carefully maintained appearances give way to messy, complicated truth. Can these characters, and by extension can we, find authenticity after living so long with comfortable illusions? Episode 49 promises to explore these questions as the Dupree-Richardson family confronts not just legal jeopardy, but the more profound challenge of redefining themselves in the aftermath of revelation. Will they continue to fragment under pressure, or will they find a new foundation based on honesty rather than appearance? The journey beyond the gates has only just begun. If you found this analysis of Beyond the Gates illuminating, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations of television's most compelling dramas. Share your own theories and reactions in the comments below. Do you think Ted knew about his parentage all along? Will Nicole and Ted's marriage survive these revelations? Can the Dupree-Richardson family ever recover from this fracture? Join our community of passionate viewers as we go beyond the surface of Beyond the Gates. Like, comment, and subscribe for more.